Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are jumping straight into a debate that isn't just a whisper anymore. It's really shouting across the entire world of cricket.
And the latest catalyst, the thing that just poured fuel on the fire, was that third one-day international between India and South Africa in Vizag.
Yeah, the series decider. It was all set up perfectly, a 1-1 tie. It promised all this high drama, these nerve-shredding moments, a real clash of giants.
That was definitely the packaging, wasn't it? The whole narrative was built up. India, coming off that tough loss in the Test series, they desperately needed to stamp their authority in white ball cricket.
Right, to avoid a really humiliating home series loss. The tension should have been, you should have been able to feel it.
It should have been palpable.
But the match we actually watched, it was so far from that. It was far from a high-level, tension-filled contest. Instead of some grand finale, it gave us this frustratingly predictable outcome.
Depressingly predictable, yeah.
And for us, it just exposed how the 50-over format's tactical core is just decaying. So our mission today is laser-focused. We are using this one-match India chasing down 271 with almost comical ease as the ultimate case study to argue that ODI cricket is just suffering from this chronic predictability. It's relying on a manufactured spectacle and, well, it's favoring this high-scoring mediocrity over any kind of genuine sporting competition.
And that's the thing. If you just glance at the scorebook, it looks like, total dominance from India. But the mechanics underneath, they tell a much, much sadder story.
So break that down. What did the scorecard actually say?
Well, India won the toss, which in itself was this weird little historical footnote. They broke a 20-game toss losing streak.
A 20-game streak?
Yeah, can you believe it? And of course, they chose to bowl first, which was the single most critical decision of the day. They bowled South Africa out for 270 and then they chased it down with stunning efficiency.
Stunning is one word for it. Monotonous is maybe another. They ended up on 220 for 1 in just over 35 overs. They needed 51 runs with nearly 15 overs and 9 wickets left.
Think about that. Chasing 271 with 9 wickets and 14.3 overs to spare in a series decider.
That's not high-level dominance. That's not a contest.
Right.
That, to me, is a symptom of a much deeper systemic disease in the format that, and I really believe this is reaching its terminal phase, we need to dissect exactly what happened here. Okay, let's unpack this whole thing, and we have to start with the fundamental problem of modern white ball cricket, and that is the pitch.
Always the pitch.
We're in Vizag at the ACA-VDCA Stadium, and all the pregame reports were, glowing. They told us it was a good batting surface, a fast outfield.
Which is just code, isn't it? It's code for get ready for a lot of runs and not much for the bowlers.
Exactly, because when you see how the game actually played out, especially South Africa's innings, that surface didn't create a contest between bat and ball. It actively manufactured runs to make sure the entertainment quota was met.
And that's the flawed premise, isn't it? That the ICC, the broadcasters, they seem to be doubling down on this idea that a good game is a high-scoring game. The expectation isn't for a tense, balanced game where, say, 250 is a competitive score.
Not anymore.
No, the expectation is 330, 350, maybe more, because the fans have been conditioned by T20 to just want boundaries. So what you get are these surfaces that are basically highways. They're flattened, they're baked hard, and they give a massive, often unbeatable advantage to the batters.
Especially the team chasing under lights.
Oh, absolutely. With the do factor, it just becomes a completely different game.
So let's use South Africa's first innings as Exhibit A for this. Yes, Quinton De Kock was absolutely electric. He was brilliant.
He was on another level.
106 off just 89 balls, 8 fours, 6 sixes. But look at how he scored his 50. He brought it up with this massive slog sweep off Ravindra Jadeja.
Right, off Jadeja. One of the best figure spinners in the world. And that tells you everything you need to know about the pitch. The moment a batter gets themselves set on a surface like that, even against an elite spinner, the pitch offers almost nothing.
There's no grip, no turn, no variable bounce to challenge them.
The ball just skids on. It becomes so predictable for the batsman. And that creates a total mindset shift. Defense, trying to build an innings carefully, it almost becomes pointless. Attack is the only real option.
And you saw that immediately with the next batters. Like Matthew Brudsky, he comes in, and what does he do? Immediately launches 2 consecutive sixes off Tilak Varma's part-time spin.
And suddenly the total is rocketing past 150,
right,
well before the 30th over. It's just this relentless prioritization of hitting boundaries, and it's all enabled by the flat track. It inflates the scores, sure, but it completely sacrifices the strategic subtlety that 50-over cricket used to be about.
Which leads us directly to the bowlers, especially the fast bowlers. They're just reduced to cannon fodder. They become walking targets.
They really do.
I mean, look at India's main strike pacer, Prasidh Krishna. Coming into this game, his economy rate for the series was already a worrying 8.48 runs and over.
And just to put that number in perspective for you, a world-class ODI bowler, you're aiming for an economy rate below 6, maybe just over it in the death overs. 8.48 means he was basically leaking runs at a T20 pace for the entire 50-over game.
And even in this match, despite picking up wickets later, that early spell just confirmed the bias. He conceded 18 runs in the 11th over alone.
Yeah, that was brutal. De Kock hit him for consecutive 6s and a 4.
How is a bowler supposed to recover from that psychologically? You're supposed to be the one setting the tone with the new ball, generating bounce and movement. But the second the ball loses its shine, you're left with no options.
Your options are either bold defensively and just gift them singles, or you try a variation, a slower ball or something. And on a pitch like that, the batter just has all the time in the world to line it up and send it to the boundary.
To his credit, Krishna did adapt. He found a way in his second spell. But that early pressure just showed that the entire environment was just fundamentally tilted towards the bat.
And we have to talk about the rules that make it even worse. This 2 new ball rule in ODIs, one from each end.
Oh, it's a huge factor.
It's massive, because historically, one of the most fascinating tactical battles in an ODI was the aging of that single ball, the scuffing, the polishing. It allowed bowlers, especially around the 35th to 45th over, to get reverse swing.
Which was a genuine weapon against set batsmen.
It was the great equalizer.
Yeah.
But now, with 2 balls in play, neither one ever gets old enough, they don't get scuffed enough.
Yeah.
And so reverse swing, that key weapon, is practically gone. The death overs just become a slogging contest.
And the context of the series proves this isn't a one-off. Just look at the previous match. India couldn't defend 358.
Right. A score of 350 is no longer a safe total. So chasing is always the priority. Huge totals are the norm, and the pitch itself is just a non-factor. It's not providing a technical challenge.
Okay, so this brings me to the first big provocative thesis of this deep dive, and I genuinely think this Vizag game is the proof. If pitches are this flat, why bother playing 50 overs? Just call it a T20 extended version. The bowlers are simply cannon fodder, and that's not sport.
I get the aggression in that statement, but it taps right into the problem. It speaks to the tactical vacuum that these conditions create. If the pitch basically says the only competitive score is 350 plus, then the only real difference between a T20 and an ODI is that boring middle bit.
Exactly. And even that middle phase is now just aggressive accumulation. You're just waiting for the last 10 overs, or maybe you're just waiting for the other team to make a mistake and collapse.
The skill adaptation is gone. The old requirement to defend, to rotate strike, to build a platform and then launch, it's been replaced by just a flat-out constant hunt for boundaries.
And when a score like 270, which should be a tricky chase that demands some tactical thinking, looks like it's achievable in 35 overs, you know the wicket itself has failed. It's failed its one job, to provide a balanced contest. This manufactured entertainment, it just comes at the cost of any real sporting value.
But while the pitch definitely set the stage, we can't let South Africa completely off the hook here. The other half of this equation, the reason this decider was so one-sided, was South Africa's spectacular failure to build on their start.
Oh, they contributed massively to the mediocrity. I mean, they laid the perfect runway for a huge match-winning score.
The perfect word.
And then they just did this immediate, inexplicable U-turn and crashed the plane. De Kock and Temba Bavuma put on a fantastic 113-run stamp.
And Bavuma was playing that perfect anchor role. He got to a personal milestone, to 2,000 ODI runs. His 48 off 67 balls was exactly what they needed. It set the foundation.
At that stage, around the 20th over, you're looking at them and thinking, okay, they are perfectly poised to accelerate towards 330, maybe 340.
That is exactly what a modern ODI platform looks like. You absorb the initial pressure, you make sure you keep wickets in hand against the spinners, and then you plan to just launch an all-out assault in the final 20 overs.
But look at what happened. Starting in that 21st over, the entire innings just imploded. It was a staggering display of mental and tactical fragility.
It was genuinely shocking, especially for a series decider. Bavuma was the first domino. He got caught off Jadeja in the 21st over, and that ended that big partnership. That was key because it just broke their rhythm.
But the real momentum killer came from Prasidh Krishna in the 29th over, a bang-bang double strike.
And remember, this is the same Krishna who was getting hammered earlier. But he came back, he adjusted, and he just delivered a spell of pure pressure. He traps Matthew Britska LBW for tummy 4.
And then the very next ball, or close to it,
Immediately after, he gets Aiden Markram, the guy who scored a century in the last game, arguably their most reliable white ball player, caught by Kohli at cover for just a single run.
That one over just shifted the entire psychology of the innings. And then the final nail in the coffin, the one that really broke their spine, was De Kock himself, bowled by a fuller ball from Krishna for his 106.
And just like that, South Africa tumbled from a dominant 168 for 2 to 199 for 5. It happened so fast.
This wasn't just a physical mistake, it was a complete psychological capitulation. The moment the pressure was reapplied, they just crumbled. It suggests they had no plan B, no strategy for how to handle a mid-innings wobble.
They lost 3 of their key batters in the space of 8 overs for next to no runs. They completely failed to recognize that even on a flat deck, you have to respect the game. A new spell, change in bowling, and you need patience, you need to rotate the strike, not just panic and swing for the fences.
And then, of course, their vulnerability to spin was just laid bare for everyone to see. Kuldeep Yadav steps in to twist the knife.
He gets that double strike in the 39th over, dismisses the young talent Dewald Brevis and then Marco Jansen straight after.
And that failure against spin under pressure, it's a classic sign of a team that lacks real strategic depth. Your middle order is supposed to be able to navigate those overs, rotate the strike, find the odd boundary, and keep the momentum ticking over.
Instead, they panicked. They gave their wickets away so cheaply, and they ended up being bowled out in 47.5 overs. They didn't even use their full 50. After having a century maker and that huge platform, to barely scrape past 270 is just a massive tactical failure.
Which brings us to our next hard truth, and this one is aimed squarely at the Proteus. South Africa is the most frustrating team in cricket. They show flashes of brilliance, then collapse with the tactical acumen of a club team. Their captaincy in the third ODI was utterly baffling.
Baffling is a strong word, but the implication of deep tactical failure is, well, it's undeniable. The criticism isn't just about them not being good enough, it's about their decision-making under stress. For instance, when they came out to bowl, their field placings, their bowling changes, it all felt so predictable. There was no real aggression to try and defend what they knew was a below-par score. They seemed stuck.
Stuck between what?
Between trying to protect a total they knew was too low and trying to attack with bowlers who were getting absolutely no help from the pitch. So they did neither effectively.
And the context here is what makes it so frustrating. This is basically the same group of players that just dismantled India in the Test series. A historic 2-0 whitewash.
Exactly. Test cricket demands relentless psychological strength. It demands strategic planning over 5 whole days. It demands patience. Their success there proves they can do it.
So why can't they do it here?
Because the ODI format, in its current state, rewards momentary chaos over disciplined strategy. And that's where they fell apart. They were masters of patience in the tests. In this ODI, they were masters of self-destruction.
They turned a potential 330-plus score into a meek 270. And in doing so, they basically handed the advantage over to the team that already had the massive built-in advantage of chasing under lights. Their tactical failure just magnified the pitch's bias. And now we have to pivot to India's role in all of this predictability. The chase. The target was 271, but the way India went about it made the whole contest feel completely, uneventful. It was like watching the last few miles of a marathon where the winner is already 10 minutes ahead of everyone else.
Alarmingly routine is the phrase that comes to mind. The required run rate at the start was 5.42. Very, very manageable. India ended up chasing it at a canter, well over 6 runs and over. By the end, they needed something like 3.5 runs per over. It was a walk in the park.
And the chase was built on just 2 stellar individual performances at the very top of the order.
Which just confirms the whole thesis, doesn't it? When the pitch is a highway and the target is manageable, top-order brilliance dictates the entire game. The format becomes almost irrelevant.
We absolutely have to highlight the quality we saw, because you can't fault the players for exploiting the conditions. Rohit Sharma, 75 off 73 balls. He played that commanding innings, really set the tone.
And he also got that huge personal milestone, joining Tendulkar, Dravid, and Kohli in the 20,000 International Runs Club. That is staggering consistency over a long career.
It's incredible. But the real star of the show, it had to be Yashasvi Jaiswal. He got his maiden ODI century, a brilliant 100 off 111 balls.
And their partnership, that monumental 155-run opening stand, It just completely killed the game. It nullified any tiny chance South Africa might have had.
Right, because if you're defending a low total, you absolutely need early wickets. You have to create some tension in those first 10 overs.
But Jaiswal and Rohit were just so disciplined in their aggression. They used the fast outfield, they knew there was no seam movement, and they just took the game away. It just confirmed what Rahul said at the toss. Chasing was going to be easy.
And then when Rohit finally gets out at 155 for one, who walks out to the middle?
Virat Kohli.
Of course. The man in scintillating form, he's already scored back-to-back centuries in the series. His record at Visag is insane. He was averaging nearly 98 there.
And he comes in and immediately hits a boundary and a six. The pressure was just gone. It had completely evaporated. He and Jaiswal put on a 50-run partnership in just 49 balls. Game over.
And this is where we see that individual brilliance just masking the structural flaws. The problem isn't that these guys are brilliant players. Of course they are.
They're some of the best in the world.
The problem is that the win relied purely on them. It relied on their top-order skill set, exploiting an easy pig of a demoralized opposition. It never, ever required India's middle order to show up or be tested.
Exactly. India spent years, literally years, agonizing over its middle order composition. Who's at 4? Who's at 5? The highly talented guys waiting in the wings, Gaikwad, Tilak Varma, Rahul himself, Jadeja, they were basically just spectators.
They just watched from the balcony.
Yeah. India's biggest long-standing question marks remain completely unanswered because the top 3 finished the job. It was an exhibition, not a contest.
Which brings us to the next point. And it's about framing this win in a negative light, which sounds harsh, but I think it's true. India's win was about as exciting as watching paint dry. They beat a disorganized South African side on a highway of a pitch, and the media will hype it up as dominance, its empty achievement.
The word routine is the one that really captures it. In a series decider, you're desperate for some tension, for some twists and turns, for moments where genuine skill has to prevail over the conditions.
And we got none of that.
We got a confirmation of the toss advantage and the batting ceiling.
Yeah.
It's really hard to call a game exciting when the result feels like a mathematical certainty by the 30th over of the second innings.
And you have to factor in the opposition here. South Africa, knowing they were defending a weak total, they never managed to build any pressure. Their bowling was defensive. They were hoping for an error rather than trying to force one.
And that's what makes the victory feel empty. The dominance is there on the scorecard. They won by a huge margin, but it was achieved under these perfect, non-challenging conditions against a team that offered almost no resistance.
It just highlights how predictable the format has become, especially when chasing.
And even the rules of the game help with this predictability. The field restrictions. You only have 4 fielders outside the circle for that huge chunk of the middle overs. It just makes it so easy for set batters to rotate the strike, knock the ball into the gaps, and completely nullify any pressure a bowler tries to build.
So India didn't just win. They capitalized on a perfect storm of conditions that all but guaranteed their success. The flat pitch, the dew, the field restrictions, the lack of reverse swing, and an opposition that basically just imploded. It wasn't a triumph of strategy, it was just a flawless execution of a very simple, predetermined plan.
So we really need to pull all these different threads together now because it all points to the ODI format's core identity crisis. That Visag match was the perfect example. We watched 100 overs of cricket, took up a whole day, but the game's winner was basically decided in the first 20 minutes.
At the coin toss?
Yeah, at the coin toss. And then it was sealed in the first 25 overs of the chase.
And the central conflict is just so glaringly obvious now. If you're going to play 50 overs with the kind of relentless boundary-hitting aggression that we associate with T20s, then why do you need the full 50 overs?
Exactly. That middle period, the so-called middle overs, from 15 to 40, that used to be the strategic heart of the game.
It was a chess match.
It was, where rotating the strike was a skill, where spin would dictate the terms, where you managed risk carefully. And now it's sustained T20 aggression, padded out with a few extra overs of knocking it around.
And this ties back so critically to those external factors, the toss, the dew. They are deciding games more often than actual skill. Rahul said it at the toss. He said they chose to bowl because of the dew.
And Temba Bavuma admitted he would have done the exact same thing. So when both captains agree, before a single ball is bowled, that the result is probably going to be decided by who bats second, it just cheapens the whole contest.
The source material is clear on this. The toss was a crucial factor because of the established trend. Chasing teams have a massive advantage in almost every day-night game in the subcontinent.
So if winning a coin flip, a 50-50 chance, gives you a, what, 70% statistical chance of winning the match before it even starts, the sporting value of the next 100 overs just plummets.
You're just watching a process play out. You're not watching a genuine competitive struggle.
And we saw how unbalanced the contest between bat and ball was. The Indian spinners, Kuldeep and Jadeja, they were effective.
Because South Africa played them poorly.
Yes, and because the pitch did offer them a tiny bit more than it offered the Pacers. But India's pace attack, like Prasidh Krishna's early spell, they just struggled because there was no new ball movement and, as we said, no reverse swing later on.
So the format is only being held together by these very narrow phases. It relies on spin exploiting a middle-order collapse. That's not a sustainable model for creating tension over 100 overs.
It's not. It just becomes a waiting game. You're waiting for the dew, you're waiting for the collapse, or you're waiting for the top order to just score 80% of the runs.
And this is why the ODI format is trapped. It's being squeezed from both sides. It doesn't have the sustained psychological and strategic battle of Test cricket.
The very format that South Africa had just mastered against India.
Right. But on the other side, it also doesn't have the rapid-fire, high-intensity, 2-hour entertainment of T20 cricket. 50 overs has become this bloated, strategically compromised middle ground that doesn't really satisfy anyone anymore.
The Test traditionalist isn't happy, and the modern T20 fan is bored.
Test cricket forces you to earn every run, every wicket. T20 offers pure, chaotic fun. ODI cricket, in its current state, offers neither. It's just long, predictable batting practice with the occasional, often self-inflicted, collapse.
And from a viewer's perspective, those middle overs are often just a complete lull. The first power play is exciting, the last 10 overs are chaos, but that huge chunk in the middle is just waiting. Why commit 6 or 7 hours to watch that lull when you can get all the excitement you need in 3?
Okay, so here's the final drastic summation of what I think this exact decider proved about the format itself, not just the teams. The only thing this third ODI proved is that the 50-over format is terminal. It's too long for entertainment and too compromised for true sporting value. Scrap it and save us the hours.
That is a harsh conclusion, but it's one that's becoming more and more popular. And the evidence from this series backs it up. High scores being chased down with ease, the overwhelming influence of the toss, and games being decided by sudden collapses rather than sustained pressure. It all fuels that argument. When the conditions are set up to guarantee runs for viewership, the fundamental sporting contract between bat and ball is broken.
So we came into this deep dive to talk about an Indian series win, but what we've really done is confirm that the 50-over format's flaws run deeper than ever before. That match was over so quickly, and it was decided by a flat pitch, the due advantage from a coin flip, and South Africa's almost cartoonish collapse.
And while fans are, and should be, celebrating Jaiswal's maiden century and Rohit Sharma hitting 20,000 runs, those are incredible individual achievements.
Absolutely.
Those moments just papered over the deep, jagged cracks in a match that was never really a contest. It was never truly competitive or strategically challenging.
And that leads us to the final thought we want to leave you with, a question for you to really think about. If ODI cricket now requires these flat pitches, these 6-hitting spectacles, and a built-in advantage for the chasing team just to guarantee high scores and keep viewers interested, is that spectacle worth sacrificing a genuine, balanced contest between bat and ball?
And if the game is only considered fun or dominant when the chasing team wins easily, often because their opponent self-destructed, what does that really say about the long-term health and the structural integrity of the 50-over game?
Something fundamental has to change, whether it's the pitches, the rules about the balls, or maybe the format's very existence. Because if it doesn't, it's just not going to survive being squeezed from both sides by its two much healthier neighbors, T20 and Test cricket.